So very good morning, everyone. Thank you for connecting, and welcome to the Education and Skills Data Space event, part of our series of webinars looking at data sharing in different domains and looking what are the building blocks needed to build the infrastructure, and also how to drive value out of the data sharing and what are different applications we can build out of it. So my name is Victor de Vries. I'm Junior Community Manager at Gaia-X, and I'll just be taking us through some housekeeping and opening for the webinar. So just so everyone is aware, the webinar is recorded, and this recording will also be available on our Gaia-X YouTube channel, with all the different chapters earmarked for the different presentations. If you have any questions during the panels, that's great. And please you pop them in the chat. Don't use the Q&A function, because otherwise other participants cannot see them. So please pop them in the chat. And then also it would be great if you can also address them to a specific speaker if you have a specific question, or otherwise you can keep them open. And then you're also welcome to switch on your screen and raise your hand if you want to address a question live. That's also very much welcome. And Matthias will be moderating questions, so he'll come to you then. Just by way of background, this webinar is organized by the Gaia-X ASBL, the association, in connection with the Gaia-X ecosystem, so specifically the education and skills one this time. So Matthias de Bièvre and Claudio Cimelli are co-leads of this ecosystem and are also joining us on this webinar. So we are very happy to have this collaboration happening. And just so you're aware, if you are interested in following any of the ecosystems which hold regular meetings or organize events such as these, please check out our website as well. So then a quick overview of the program that we have today. Shortly after me, Alberto Palomo, the Gaia-X CSO, will give a setting the scene presentation, also showing where Gaia-X can fit into the picture of the education and skills data space. Then we'll move towards a roundtable discussion, bringing together perspectives from government, from edtech providers on the general value on skills and education, data exchange, and interoperability. Then we will also have a presentation of different use cases and building blocks coming from the Prometheus-X association. And then finally, we'll also have a presentation of the Data Space for Skills Go project, so the deployment project. And we'll have some interesting updates from the European Commission and also from Digital Europe, one of the leading consortium members. And then we'll also have about 20 minutes or so reserved for Q&A. But as I said, also, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to pop them in the chat or raise your hand during. So then I will pass the floor to Alberto Palomo, if he is connected now. Alberto, if you hear me and you're here, let me know. Okay, then please feel free to share your screen, Alberto, and you can start your presentation.
Well, Alberto is not in the panelists, I think.
Oh, okay, Alberto, I will share the screen for your presentation, and then...
Hello, everybody. Okay, this works now.
You should be able to now, yeah.
Not part of the panelists, so I was struggling with finding. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Victor, for the presentation, and welcome everybody to this educational skills. I can share the screen.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, yeah. So welcome everybody to this education and skills Gaia-X ecosystem. I am Alberto Palomo. I'm the chief strategist at Gaia-X, and a big part of the work that we do really is about trying to find value and practicality in the different deliverables that the Gaia-X association does. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Alrighty. So as Victor was saying, some of the key topics for today's webinar is really highlighting the value of a common governance model. And this is key to what Gaia-X does. You know, it really enables common governance models. In this case, including mediating or intermediating in the interaction between the public and the private sectors, because obviously they play a very significant role in education and skills, and enabling common services. You know, this common governance model is meant to sort of be providing common services. And then we, as Victor mentioned, we will be seeing live examples of how data sharing in this particular case can transform this particular domain. So what is Gaia-X? Really, you know, the role of Gaia-X is quite fundamental to the governance of digital ecosystems and also data spaces. And what Gaia-X provides is it's a scheme for automated conformity validation or conformity verification. So it's a way to digitalize a conformity assessment process. And this is the so-called trust framework, you know, the way to digitalize the conformity assessment and also providing a set of basic rules to which services can be validated or verified against. And this trust framework essentially operationalizes the definition of those common governance models. And those are the ones that connect different ecosystems. So it really serves as a bridge to connect sort of federated digital ecosystems. And that's how we enable data sharing at scale, but also, and quite importantly, building and using end user applications, right? Because data sharing does not tend to be the end goal in itself. And we've put together here a probably oversimplistic diagram, you know, of different data and infrastructure services lying all over Europe. And all of these services have characteristics and terms and conditions for what they do and how they behave. And following the technical compatibility from Gaia-X, which is it's rule agnostic, it's just a technical and semantic document. It allows to sort of input those characteristics into the Gaia-X clearinghouse, you know, which is one of the deliverables of the association. We have a user at the top right side of the first diagram that basically selects those rules that he or she wants to use services, digital services. And so what the clearinghouse does is, according to the Gaia-X compliance, which is the set of actual rules, so it's agnostic to technology, but moreover, really, one could set up, a user could create or envision his or her own set of rules. The clearinghouse basically says which of those terms and conditions, which of those service level agreements, which of the characteristics of those digital services that are located in different parts of the world, or the union in this case, which are compliant or non-compliant to set requirements. And what that essentially gives you is a sort of a catalog of different services that are compliant, and allows the ecosystem driver, the user, but really it's the ecosystem driver, to find out what they really want to use, you know. And so this is our interpretation or definition of operationalizing a governance model, because essentially one sets specific rules, and that allows you to say, hey, this is what is fulfilling my rules. The actual technical interconnection is not part of Gaia-X's scope, as far as connecting those distributed resources. But it allows to have trust and same semantics on identities, on behavior of those services, on service level agreements. And that's already a massive, gigantic value proposition, because this is really what we think has been missing in federated digital ecosystems achieving critical mass, right? So it's a fundamental step towards operationalizing a common governance model. And so that automated conformity validation and verification, you know, it involves obviously technical standards, which are being selected by the technical committee of the ASBL. It also sets the specifications, including ontologies for the different elements that are being assessed, but more importantly, policies, you know, and those policies between educational institutions, between training providers, between employers, policymakers, are essentially what defines what a data provider, what the data being provided is, what the consumers want to receive, and that allows to not only share data on a common scheme, but also develop and use digital applications. And so some of the benefits include partial semantic and technical interoperability. So for example, what do the data sets mean, how to perform, how to use APIs, how to perform the different technical bits. It doesn't solve the whole spectrum, but it provides a basic common layer. But really, it provides quite a lot of organizational and even legal interoperability because you're comparing services head to head. And this really simplifies the scaling up of data sharing because there's a common governance model for everyone. And as an example, Prometheus-X, which we'll get the floor and discuss this, it's a Gaia-X Lighthouse project, is developing a set of catalog of services and data sets based on these Gaia-X specifications and standards. And this allows them to describe these services that they provide in a scalable and common way. And hopefully this is useful and sets the scene for what's coming next. So back to you, Victor.
Thanks a lot, Alberto. So now we'll turn to our first roundtable, and I'll hand over the reins to a co-lead of the education skills ecosystem and president at Prometheus-X, Matthias de Bièvre.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you very much, Alberto, for the introduction of Gaia-X. Welcome, everybody. Happy to see you so many today. If you're new, welcome. I think you'll see some very interesting talks and first use cases. And if you already have been part in previous webinars on the skills data space, there will be some new things today on use cases, but also on the different speakers and domains we have. So I'm very happy to introduce the first panel today. Here we go. First panel where, sorry, not the right button. First panel where we will be discussing and discovering some very large skills and education interoperability data sharing projects to bring innovation to this field, mostly to enable more learner-centric, more human-centric services. And we have great projects from France, from the Netherlands, and also at European level. And we'll be discussing and presenting these projects, but also concretely, how do they implement this interoperability? What's the connection with the different private solution, EdTech, HR tech providers? How do we enable this public-private collaboration, and how can we all work together to a common European data space to make these innovation scales, and also have a common education and HR technology market and deployment? So with me, I have today Claudio Cimelli, who is a project director at the French Ministry of Education. Claudio is also the lead of the DASES, so the Data Space for Education and Skills working group in Gaia-X, and has been working on these interoperability issues for now more than a decade, and has been very much pushing for this education and skills data space. And we're going to talk how the French Ministry of Education implements this interoperability. We have also Evelien Renders, which is the advisor and international collaboration at SURF, the president of EUNIS, also one of the coordinators of the European Digital Education Hub. She has been working on open standards, fostering interoperability between higher education institutions, edtechs for several years, and is a major asset to have in this development of the skills data space. Thanks, Evelien, for being here. Abdou is the deputy head of data and AI department at FormPro Skills, the Caisse des Dépôts, which is a big national institution in France. And also he is leading the deployment of the passport of skills in France, which will enable each person, each citizen of France to have a passport with all their skills credentials coming from, let's say, higher education training, but also coming from employers. And so a very interesting, let's say, tool and project that is being deployed, and that is handling, of course, skills data interoperability. So very happy to have you as well, Abdou. And we will also discuss with Sakari HeikkiIä, program manager at CSE Finland, also leading the DigiVisual project from CSE. So we will talk a bit more about it, but the DigiVisual project unites all higher institutions in Finland to interconnect their training courses and enable a more ecosystem approach to how higher education institutions work together, and how we can have a more learner-centric approach. So a great panel representing very important national and European projects that enable this interoperability. We will start with a few very short presentations from each of the panelists to present the different projects they are working on, to set some context, and then we will dive into this more discussions of how the public-private collaborations happen, how is interoperability managed, and how can we all move forward to a common European skills data space. Don't hesitate to ask your questions in the chat. We will be taking them along the way and make this the most interactive possible. So to kick us off with the first presentation, please, Sakari.
Thank you very much, Matthias, and a very good morning to everyone who has joined. I will very briefly go through what we have been doing in Finland, what kind of projects we have focused on in the DigiVisio program, and go through the aspects of interoperability and as Matthias said, the learner centricity that we're trying to promote. So DigiVisio program is a program of all the Finnish higher education institutions, and our first service that we are building and we will launch in April will be opin.fi, which means I learn in Finnish. It will give the learners access to all the open lifelong learning study options offered by the Finnish higher education institutions in one platform, one service, where the learners can filter and find the most suitable learning opportunities for their specific needs. So the service will cater to very different type of needs. It will
I don't hear Sakari anymore.
Support those
Sakari,
who have never been in the workforce already and want to learn all the relevant of having them in each and every higher education institution's own service or platform. So this supports different filtering and recommendation services that can be built based on the study offering and the information related to the study offering. The data that the higher education institutions will receive from this platform will also support them to gain learner insight and develop their courses, but also the service in the future to add new features and for example, build new services on top of the information. And obviously there is an aspect of efficiency. The Finnish higher education institutions want to focus on the quality of education. The platforms and the common operating methods, they can open resources that the higher education institutions can actually use on developing new courses, more quality in the education system. This is a picture with very many elements, but I think this kind of describes very well in one picture what we are doing. So the open.fi is the platform that is visible to the learner, but behind the service, there's obviously the university's daily operating environments, the databases where the course offering is, and what we are doing, we are creating solutions for that data to be transferred into the data platform that the open.fi service uses. So this means that a lot of work to promote interoperability needs to be done, not only technical, but very much on the semantic level, the language that the higher education institutions use when they describe learning opportunities, the learning outcomes, and all the other data that is related to the courses. For example, what time of day they are provided, what kind of pedagogical approaches they use. So there's a lot of things that need to be discussed and agreed upon between the higher education institutions. When the service will be launched in April this year, I think that the real value and the opportunities are presented in the data that is gathered in the database. The data related to the learners, what are they looking for? What kind of topics are hot in the labor market at the moment? What kind of courses are they looking for? But then also the courses themselves, when they are in one place, it can also open opportunities to connect with other partners, such as, for example, companies that could use the data and actually kind of look for competence development opportunities from that platform. So there's a lot of opportunities. When we're launching in April, the ecosystem will be a closed one. It is between the higher education institutions. But I see that there's a lot of opportunities to open up that ecosystem in the future, bring along new partners, and build new services on top of this information. So that's very briefly the use case or the case that we're building in Finland, the national DigiVisio project and the open.fi service.
Thanks a lot, Sakari, for this very precise presentation and keeping the time, and very interesting. I will come back to especially also what you said at the end, opening up the ecosystem and connecting new services, new data sources to it. I think that will be a very interesting discussion. Before we do that, let's go on with the next presentation of Abdou, and I will share my screen to present it. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Matthias.
Wait.
Do you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Abdou.
Okay.
Wait, sorry, I need to find the right.
Yes.
Here we
By
go.
waiting, Matthias, I introduce myself. My name is Abdou Fall. I work at Caisse Dépôts. I'm deputy of data and AI. In particular, I'm the data owner of the skills passport, or the passport de compétences. I'm very. I hope it's okay. Okay, let's switch to the next slide, please. Okay, so today I'm very happy to share you our work about the passport of competence. If you don't know what is passport of competence, it's the skills passport implemented currently at Caisse Dépôts. The first step, I will show you, tell you about some key data. Around 39 million holders have a passport by experience or certification, actually. More than 200 million professional experience we collect, and with an average of more than one professional experience per year and per holder. So it's a very, very big data collected. More than 39 million certifications have been filled in our IT systems, with data depth up to 1999 for data from the Minister of National Education. So we collect all this certification in our system. Near 11 million training files completed feed the passport. And we are feeding actually near about 20,000 Olympic volunteer badge. So what I try to explain is that all this data show that we are building a national skills platform. The next slide, please. And what is the context of the passport of the competence? This skills passport is a new system integrated by the law first. This law is called La Liberté de choisir son avenir. It was in 2018. We have a mandate to build this platform with an entrusted to the CDC an application of the law. And this law gives us the implementation and the management of all the dematerialized service. It's a digital platform. And for it's this is a service, a public service available to all users who have already a personal training account. If you know, we have another big platform who allowed all users to have a training account, an ILA, individual learning account. And the objective, the main objective is to facilitate professional orientation, the guidance, career development, and the job searching. So that's a passport of competence. So now the slide before, please. Just yes. And what are the main steps of this, how we promote formal and informal skills for better guidance? The first step is to collect all this data I explain you. First of all, actually, we have certification, titles, diplomas, and accreditation. And we have also professional experience, continuing training, and what we call badges is some kind of recognition of experience you make more in addition of your work or your current work. And tomorrow we will add in this passport the voluntary, the reservist activities, and the non-professional experience. That's what I said just before. And if you collect all this data in our system, how the question and the very difficult question is how to share this data with a third party. First of one, we have to secure PDF resume electronically signed by our company, Caisse des Dépôts. And tomorrow, this resume will be integrated, verified by a system, a grounded system. And the first step of sharing is to connect with the France Travail product name Profil de Compétence. So what we try to do is to share this data with the ecosystem. The first one is our partners, the ministry, the Labor Ministry, and France Travail is the entity here who are in charge of people seeking jobs. And the third step is to promote skills. How we promote skills? The first one is to work with a common framework. First national framework, but tomorrow it will be a European. We can see it will be a European framework. And this framework, actually, we are working in France, is ROM 4.0. We are working with France Travail, and we deliver of skills association with badge. But it's this framework allow us to have one and common language of skills. And tomorrow we try to make, by example, automatic deduction of acquired for each guaranteed data. because it's very important to exploit this data and to share it in order to make many use cases. And in this use case, we will discuss about the use case. Thank you. I will present it after.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Abdou. On this large-scale project, we'll discuss it more and how you will share all that data. And so now to Claudio from the French Ministry of Education.
Hello everywhere. Nice to be here with you. I share my screen. If I don't be able to share my screen, perhaps Matthias, you can share it, but I try.
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it?
Yes.
Very good. I have small time to present you the French strategy of digital of our ministry. I start by the story of this framework, began with the publication of a document called the Ministry Digital Strategy. The aim of this strategy is to provide a long-term vision and direction for all the French public operator, local authority, and EdTech sector. This strategy focuses on 4 key areas. First, building an ecosystem to serve public policy. We are working with all local authorities and EdTech companies, sharing indicators for management and evaluation, and defining the standard individual equipment for pupils. In the spirit of eco-responsibility, I am in charge of this part of the strategy. Is to develop both digital skills and online citizenship to enable students to become informed citizens. 3, supporting the education community with sustainable and inclusive digital tools to support teachers in this transition and to develop free and open digital commons that are adopted by a large community of students, community of teachers, community of all the people. To make this free, secure, and easy to use, it's important to organize digital educational services around a secure and interoperable platform that mobilize data to optimize educational practices and create a more effective and equitable environment for all pupils. 4, ensuring that we have a user-oriented system to accelerate digital transformation by integrating the principle of agility and user experience and making digital services more intuitive and responsive. So, there is in the strategy a reference framework for all digital education services. This document is a reference in technical and semantic vision, okay? This reference framework is first a technical document, is for use by suppliers of digital tools and resources for education and by decision makers, but we must never forget the fact that we are first at the service of the users. For him, the technology must be invisible, seamless, readable, structured, accessible, interoperable, and more with portability. Who is the reference framework for? Sorry. We work with a method, and this method should be used to produce all of the documents, this document and the other document who are in the framework. The document must be able to evolve. We update the document once a year until it reaches its final version. The document is therefore made public, even if it is incomplete, in order to give all the partners a clear view of the direction taken. It's a collaborative document that includes public and private partners in its construction. The content is developed in workshop with all of them. This document is intended to become part of French legislation. Sorry, it's difficult. And it must be inserted in law, in the educational law, making its principle binding for everyone. What is the reference framework about? You show all the principle of this framework, for whom, with whom, and for which mission. All the mission I described in the document, and there is a reference for each mission. This includes, of course, teaching and education, but also career guidance, examination and certification, administration and management. What is the current status of the reference document? This document is second version, and we work this year to have a version who is more shared with all the partners. And not everything is yet operational, but we are going to focus our effort on supporting all the partners, and of course, we update the document if necessary. After 2 years, the framework almost complete. We have 5 thematic documents, and they exist in version booklet, which represent the version in force. But they also exist is on online version on the ministry's GitLab. I can email you the URL later, which will enable us to manage revision to the document and contributions from partners. We also allow us to give our partner a clear view of future version. And the most important, one of the most important part of the framework is interoperability guidance, as we can speak and as I can describe. It can be used by everyone for interoperability and reversibility of the data, interoperability for sharing, and reversibility. But we can think its interoperability is very important because it describes the condition to share and to be reversible. But sharing and reversibility is very important too, because if we can't share and if we can't do reversibility, we can do nothing in our ecosystem. We have grouped them in a single document called the Interoperability Framework. To normalize data exchange, we propose a structure based, as you can see, is on the brand Red's work on Ed matrix model, and there is all the standard who are free standard that we must use in our strategy. If you have some question about this, I can explain you how we choose this standard and why we choose it and why we want to make it operational in all our ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Claudio. Great to see how one approach, one concrete approach to make this interoperability in a sense imposed and stick across a wide ecosystem. We'll talk about it more later. And now, last but not least, Evelien, up to you.
Thank you, Matthias. Yes, there we go. Thank you also for the people introducing themselves in the chat. It was nice to get a little bit of an overview of who is here. I will post some links in the chat because, of course, there's much too much information to share in 5 minutes. but I will give it a go. So I want to highlight the European Digital Education Hub and the things that they have kind of that the community has made in the last year. So this hub, for the ones who don't know it, it's a Teams environment. It's a community of about 6,000 people all over Europe working on digital education, and it's a community of practice, and it covers a lot of different topics like AI in education, but also a specific topic. So this link is also in the chat. A specific topic called interoperability for higher education. And it came from the need of 65 European university alliances, which are 9 institutions approximately that are working together to create one alliance. And it's a project by the European Commission. It has been running for a few years now, and there are now 570 higher education institutions involved. And you can imagine that these people are all trying to solve the same problems. So we put them together in a group, and it became a group of about 300 participants. And we worked together on a mapping inventory and a synthesis report and a reference architecture. More about that later. So 82% of the alliances back then participated, 41, and we had different meetings together, a very active community. And we found out that these alliances are in very early phases of interoperability, but they really feel the need. So we saw that a lot of them are still looking at what are the systems being used by each of these higher education institutions, and then setting their priorities and then seeing which solutions fit their problems. So in the last year or 1.5 years, this community has delivered a reference architecture based on a manifesto, an inventory mapping, going to governance recommendations and implementation resources. These all will be published officially in March, so you are getting a little bit of a sneak preview as well. And I already told you that this is a very engaged community. So these are the reasons actually why they are engaging so much. They want less administrative work, and they want a more seamless learner journey. And that is, of course, why we're doing it. So we're doing it to create this seamless cross-national learner journey. And what do we mean with that? Well, let's just take one learner, Sam. And Sam goes through the same phases every time they choose a course, apply for it, get the course, do the education, and then get the certification. And to support that learner journey, there are a lot of administrative processes that need to be dealt with by administrative staff and by teachers. And we want to make their life as easy as possible. That's what we want to do with interoperability for education logistics. So that's where the first use case came from. It's the use case about discovering learning opportunities and making sure that learners can actually choose their courses across institutions. I'm not going into all of these use cases deeply, but I just want to show you that we created 8 use cases that can also be mapped roughly onto the use cases that actually the Data Space for Skills is working with. And each of these use cases, they created a common terminology for us. They created a way to kind of start this inventory mapping, to start talking about what are the challenges you are experiencing in these specific use cases. And then what can we do together with across all of these communities? So across, you know, the French ministry is I think there's someone also in this hub. And so all of these groups that you just saw presenting, they are in the hub working together on these materials. Because in the end, what we want to do is that as an institution, you want to support your learner journey. And to do that, there are a lot of colleagues doing invisible work, right? So to support this top layer, you need the organization and the processes to work together. For example, to fill the course catalog with the right information, but you also need the application and information to be structured in the right way. So you need a standard to make sure that you have the same course data in the same format. And you need the technology to base this on. And it's really nice to see this webinar, all the groups together working on these different layers. User identity and institutional identity are the last 2 use cases that are kind of crossing everything because they are infrastructure use cases, let's say. So what did we learn from these 41 alliances? Well, they really want to prioritize their learner-facing challenges like discovery of learning materials. So I'm going to take that as the example. And when we then look into that, we see that there are some commercial providers being used. There is some open education API being used and a global edu API. And they are looking into open source systems as well, or sometimes building their own system to support this. And what did we then this is just a very, very short view of what we kind of put into these reports. So for example, we map these processes that are behind these use cases, and then we dove into them and we looked at, okay, what is then the reference architecture behind it? So we worked that into an architecture level to see like what components would we need to actually organize this on a system level, right? Very meta. And how can we then give resources to the alliances to actually implement this framework as well? So yeah, that's kind of the overview of this use case. And then for the future, we see that a lot of alliances are now going into how to manage their educational resources, but also credentials, user identity are huge topics. So there is this active community and they're continuing to work together. Yeah, that was very short, I know, but feel free to reach out to me also if you want more information. And thank you for hosting this panel, Matthias.
Thank you very much, Evelien. It's very interesting and it's going to be very useful. So we will be able to share it as well once it's public. I think it's also a great basis to discuss the how different use cases are implemented across the data space, to start with this reference architectures. So we saw a lot of great initiatives to interconnect different parties together. The general idea of the data space is also to say, let's not recreate silos when we connect few ecosystems, because the players connected to the Ministry of Education needs to be connected to the higher institution, to the employers, to the employment agencies, and so on. And so how can we work towards some kind of same protocol, same data exchange interoperable layer, so that this all works at scale and in a lifelong manner. And we have now about 20 minutes of exchange, and we can we can a bit discuss that. We did not rehearse this, so I think we can have a very open discussion to see all this, how these different initiatives can work together in this common skills data space. So first, I have some question for Sakari, for instance. At the end of your presentation, so you showed how the learner can first be matched and find learning opportunities inside the different training catalogs of the higher institutions, and you say that then you want to open it up, I guess, to open it up so that people can share their data with other innovative solutions to define their skills, get matched with jobs, and so on. Can you talk a bit more about that, and also how you plan to open it up? Have you think a bit already about the governance, about the technical infrastructure you will use to kind of federate a whole ecosystem of players that can come connect to this DigiVisual platform?
Yes, thank you, Matthias, for a good question. As I think I mentioned, the ecosystem at the moment is still closed. It's between the Finnish higher education institutions. We have been discussing about opportunities to use this type of platform also to accommodate the needs of the university alliances, which Evelien just brought up. That's one. The discovery use case is something that everyone is looking for at the moment. Mm-hmm. Looking ahead, if the higher education institutions agree, and actually there has been kind of this ecosystem, a blue paper that we have been discussing a year back, or a year or two back. The data could be used also by companies to use it as a basis for employee development use cases. So that could be one connection. We've been also looking at these national solutions that we could integrate the labor market data with the course offering data and get to, and use that as a support for learners to look for the most in-demand skills in the labor market at the moment, and the trends that are coming up in the labor market. So those are definitely use cases that we have actually made like high-level concepts in the past already, but they are waiting for the higher education institutions to first see how the service itself works, and that might be, I don't know, looking at like a five years or so ahead. That might be the reality, since that is the goal of the program, is to support the knowledge base of Finnish society as well.
So yes, thank you, Sakari. So what I get is, yes, it's going to be also dependent, of course, of the higher education institution that are responsible for the data, and there is need to be, the value needs to be demonstrated of opening the data, but the trust as well needs to be ensured, so that data can flow more openly. And Abdou, a bit of a similar question. You showed from the passport of skills how people will be able to reuse that skills, and notably in other public institutions in France, like France Travail, which is the national employment agency. But of course, makes sense that people want to reuse it in a private job board, to be matched with the right jobs, to be matched with across different training catalogs, in different talent management solutions inside employers, and so on. Have you thought about that, how to open up that, and what would be needed, and a bit the timeline?
Thank you for your question. It's very important. As we see, we have many use cases on the skills passport to guide our users to understand their path, their journey, to orient themselves and find a better job, by example. But to do this, we need to exchange and to work with all the ecosystem. We can do it just only us. So we have to work with the ecosystem in the use case, but technically, because actually we do not have interoperability standard at Caisse de Dépôts and a data exchange standard. So we are starting instruction phase. We will be interested by all initiatives I see launched by and my peers. So to do that, we just we want to work with everyone and interested by this technically part and the functional part. But the most important is to know we have many data. It's very interesting for people, for our users, and we have to help them to orient them to develop their use cases, and we have to focus on it.
Thank you, Abdou. So need for trust, need for also the technical infrastructure and the standards to make it happen. The Claudio from the Ministry of Education, you showed us that you've quite advanced on this technical aspects, and how the whole EdTech ecosystem in the, let's say, K-12 domain can use the same standards. Now you are at the phase of published this doctrine and this set of standards. How do you plan to make it adopted, in a sense, by the edtechs, and how will you help them? And maybe also, what do you see the data space can provide in that domain?
It's a good question. Thank you, Matthias. First, we think that is like said Abdou and Evelien, we must have to exchange data the same standards. Okay, and if we don't adopt the same standards, we can't exchange some data. And the first one, when we work on the French doctrine, we work with all the stakeholders, okay? Because we think that we can't write something and to don't have all the stakeholders around the table, okay? Some stakeholders work with us in some project. For example, we have a call whose name is AI Partnership. And in this call, we help some EdTech companies to answer and to provide some real solution to adopt our standard. And it's a first point, okay? We help with some calls, some EdTech companies to use the standard and to answer some needs of our ministry. Second, we work with all the companies and with his association, as you know, in some meeting that we organize in this year to exchange about the need of the ecosystem. Because we know that we can't immediately want to that all the company adopt the standard, but there is a time, a moment, and some moment that we can converge with the models that we want to use. After these models are chosen by, because, sorry, they're international standard. And they are open international standard. And we think that these models are the most used in the world. And we try to adapt them to our needs, to surcharge them, but to be in the standard. And that's a good and very important work for us to adopt the standard, but to have something perhaps special with a surcharge of the standard. It's a profile, perhaps a French profile of the standard that we use to be near the world standard, but to have some specification who answer at our needs.
Thank you, Claudio. Evelien, you've also worked on a framework, so not from what you presented, not that much on the standards, but on the architecture to implement this kind of interoperability in a set of use cases. From these groups and exchanges, what technical needs have you identified that today, let's say, higher education institutions miss the most to make this operational? And same question, how could the data space help? What can you contribute to it?
Yeah, thanks. So I find it interesting because technical needs, if you look at a technical level, they need integration architecture. They need in enterprise service buses that kind of make sure that the data that is in their legacy systems, that is transformed into the right type of data to send it across to other systems and other institutions. That's technically what they need, but that's most of the time that's a resource question because they need maybe specific like competencies within their institution to do that, like an enterprise architect. And not every institution has the capacity, the financial capacity to do that. And especially now with financial constraints being more and more high on these institutions, so lowering student numbers, less money for these kinds of things overall. We need, as a community, as an ecosystem, we need a business case. And I think it's not so much a technical need. So that was the one crucial finding from the last 1.5 years of the Digital Education Hub, is that we next to the bottom up and the technical and kind of the infrastructure, we actually also really need the governance. We need the governance on these open standards. We need a group that is neutral, let's say, that will coordinate these standards on a European and maybe even global level. And there are groups doing this, and we are also actively bringing these groups together. So it's really nice to see that this alignment of standards that Claudio was also talking about and that Sakari is interested in, because if you do such a national project like Sakari is doing in Finland and like we are doing in the Netherlands, you are really investing resources into your national ecosystem, but you also need to be aware that this will in the end be interoperable with the rest of Europe and the world. And otherwise you might be, you know, advanced with another standard and suddenly you need to change everything again. So this is why it's crucial to do this now. So yeah, next to the technical needs, I think there are governance needs. And for the technical needs, I do see the data spaces making huge steps. So I think that is also a nice time now to see how you can support and how can we work together to align these standards and to make maybe technical, you know, converters of this data as well, so that, you know, if we take the European learning model as the spine, let's say, as the kind of the common reference, how can we then map an Edu API, an Open Education API, a course catalog API from Erasmus Without Paper, like all of these different APIs and standards, how can we map them and make sure that they are aligned? They don't have to be the same. We don't need to go to one standard. We can still have these national profiles. We can still have these local profiles. They are needed, but we do need to map them and we do need to kind of transform the data from one to the other. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Evelien. And indeed, we have been working on such converters, and I'll be talking about them in a bit, and happy to collaborate as well on the ELM. I would say also what would be very interesting is that we have several use cases with higher education institutions. It would be great to see how we could first map a bit the data space architecture to the reference architecture you've worked on, and see then how it can be applied in those use cases. I think that would be very useful to do these links and not recreate the wheel, because all the different big projects we talked about, that's great, are going towards more or less similar standards, similar approaches, but let's have the place, and I think the hub is a great way to do that, to unite those players and to best share the same approach and to agree on same architectures and standards. We'll be talking a bit more how the data space handles it in a bit, but a question to Sakari and Evelien, you touched upon it, that it's not only about technical aspects, of course. It's governance, it's business model, it's value things. Sakari, in your experience in the project Digivisual, what else do you think is important to focus on to make this change adopted? And again, what do you see maybe potential avenues and collaborations with the data space?
Yes, I think one thing that we have focused on a lot is supporting change management inside the higher education institutions. Since these technical things are, in the end, they are easy if we agree on what we do. But in the institutions where actual people need to change the processes of how they work every day, what kind of language they use when they, for example, are describing course offerings, what the descriptions are. All this, it affects, in Finland, it affects roughly like, I would say 15,000 employees in higher education institutions, both academic and other staff. And getting that through is a big task, and it needs a lot of time and working together with the institutions to show them the value of all this. What can they get out of it? And linked to this, I would actually say that one of the opportunities is that these kind of AI solutions could also support the academic staff in, for example, doing the course descriptions. doing them in a way that is structured and semantically structured in a way that that the systems can actually make use of, and the learner can benefit from it. So there are a lot of things that I think that these data spaces, these solutions could support the people working in higher education institutions as well.
Thank you very much, Sakari. We are a bit at the end of the time. I'm checking a bit to see if there are questions in the chat. There was one question I saw at some point. You say, is the passport of skills only for French people? I suppose yes, but I let Abdou confirm.
Yes, I confirm. It's only for the French people actually, but we can work with the if you have European passport, the equivalent to make correspondence and equivalence. But it's something to work with other European countries. But currently, we first build for the French people.
Thanks a lot, Abdou. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. So if I sum up a bit, so the different things that came out of the answers that we kind of see, and there are different strains that needs to be handled in a sense at the same time and that are equally important. So we talked about trust and how the data is managed and open, and governance aspects of that. So how do we manage an open governance to commonly decide on the different rules and be quite transparent on it? That's one important thing. There were also the business aspects in a sense to say what is the value, what is the real value we provide to people, to teachers, to administrations, to the organizations, the companies that contribute to make this happen. That's one important part. And also on the technical aspects that still we need to agree on standards, we need to implement them, we need technical infrastructure to make data flow, and we need skills, manpower to do that technical effort. And so funding is as well important to implement all of this. And so we will talk a bit in the next parts of this how the data space and how we are tackling these different issues. And of course, we are in touch with all the different initiatives and projects that we mentioned. Claudio is lead of DASES. We have some use cases with the French Ministry of EdTech. We've been talking to the passports of skills on this standards. We are exploring with the hub how to implement the standards that come out of the hub and the reference architecture, and DigiVisual is one of the next use cases we will be working on, as we will talk a bit about it later. But more generally, these are some first avenue, and there is still some work to be done. And I think I'd like to end this before thanking you all by flagging an interesting opportunity that just opened at European level from the Horizon Europe program focused on digital education, and with a specific budget of I think 8 million euros to work on data sharing and data collection in education. And I think that's a great opportunity to bring more, in a sense, cohesion across all of these initiatives, and also to a wider public. Everybody present here is also more than welcome to participate, because building a project together, getting the funding and so on is a good way to precisely collaborate. So you can of course contact us if you're interested. We'll share a form, but I think that it's useful to flag, because there are politics funding towards that, and we have a good basis to work upon, and so interesting times ahead. So before we move to the next topic, and we're right on time, thank you very much to all of our panelists, to the great projects you are working on, and to your very clear presentations and answers. I know it was interesting for the whole audience. And yeah, stay with us for the next parts. And if you have questions, please answer them in the chat and ask them in the chat. So we will move to the next session, where we'll be presenting and talking about the first advancements, in a sense, and deployments of technical infrastructure and use cases of the skills data space through Prometheus-X. So, sorry, we'll find the right presentation. So yes, the question is to show a bit more practically how this data space is being implemented on the technical, on the governance, on the business levels, and so show some first use cases and where we're at. And of course, it's always evolving. And in the last part, we will talk about next project that is just launching on the skills data space and that is looking for also new partners. So stay tuned. So Prometheus-X, the general vision of the data space, and it's what we describe, so I'm not gonna spend too much time in it. Just gonna move this. I don't know if you see it. So it's to interconnect a bit to a same interoperability and data exchange network, all the different public-private players in a lifelong perspective, thanks to open standards, thanks to an open infrastructure with a shared governance to enable new users. And so Prometheus-X is and yes, sorry, but the general idea is to reduce, in a sense, the time of integration between different parties and between new parties by standardizing the technical aspects, so how data is described, but also the legal aspects. How do we get into data exchange agreements? How do we handle GDPR? Because those are the actions today that take time if you want to integrate different systems together. And instead of doing integrations partner by partner or project by project, to have a common way and one European way to interconnect, and then you can share potentially with anybody on the network. But of course, there are standards, there are contracts, and so on. And that's what the data space's vision is. It's part of the European data strategy. It has 10 billion euros of funding to deploy this kind of data exchange infrastructures across all domains. And here, the skills and education data space has been launched and is continuing to enable this for our sector. So Prometheus-X is a non-profit that was established in 2021 precisely to work on this common infrastructure and develop it. So we unite today about 19 members and partners that work on these technical aspects and develop the technical components. So a series of 20 components facilitating this interoperability. And we'll talk a bit more about them. And about 50 use cases are being deployed across Europe, across 10 EU countries, with 300 organizations. We'll show some examples, but from the whole ecosystem, schools, university, edtechs, HR techs, employers, different providers, and so on. While some of the Prometheus-X infrastructure is used in other domains as well, we will focus on the skills and education domain today. We have been funded, co-funded by the public sector, so by the French government and by DigiConnect at the European level to kind of launch this and power this. So on the skills and education domain, these are a few logos. They're not all there because we have about 300 organizations connected, but you can see there is a wide range of schools, there are universities, there are ed techs, HR techs, different service providers that kind of share and connect to the same infrastructure to enable different kind of use cases. So a wide ecosystem that is growing each day and that is built to be as open and as decentralized as possible. So, for instance, from a high level architecture point of view, how does it work? At the top, we have the different, what we call data and AI or service providers, the data providers, the data consumers, different systems that want to connect to the same network to enable use cases such as those that we heard before. And at the bottom, we have some standards. So Alberto from Gaia-X talked about some standards to establish trust between organizations, some standards to negotiate contracts, and we have as well standards that are more sector specific on how to describe the data, and for instance, the set of standards that the French Ministry of Education presented. What Prometheus-X will do is that this top layer is not automatically compliant with those standards. So Prometheus-X, with a series of partners, develop some open source components that facilitate the integration and adoption of the standards, and that, in a sense, implement this common data exchange layer on how to discover data, how to negotiate a contract, how to manage GDPR, how to enable interoperability between different formats, and so on. We'll talk a bit more precisely about some of them now. We have about 20 of these components. But Prometheus-X doesn't operate these components. It's not a platform. It's really the open source code so that then other ecosystem platforms can use it, interconnect it, and enable interoperability between them. So for instance, my company Visions provides a data intermediary solution that implements these components. You can have another system that wants to integrate them themselves to integrate their own database to the data space and be connected with a wider network. You can have existing data ecosystem that uses it. The goal is not to replace any existing integrations and networks, but rather to enhance them and bring them the necessary tools to connect more widely and have a more standardized approach. And of course, if you want to set up your own data ecosystem, you could use these components. We'll talk a bit more about the governance, the business model, and also the technical aspects of this, but this is the general idea. And so different use cases are being deployed. So some use this to interconnect, to mutualize data, to train models. Some use it more towards, as we saw, for instance, in the DigiVisual use case, to use data, mutualize data to best match people based on their skills with learning job opportunities, or to do skills analytics and identify which kind of skills will be needed based on data coming from the labor market, data coming from training courses. We have projects on VR and learning analytics, because when you use VR in learning, it generates interesting sets of data that you would like to, in a sense, include in broader learning data from other systems to have a more complete learning analytic domain. So there are some use cases there as well. Use data and AI to create content, classes content based on different resources, and personalized learning and analytics. How do you do adaptive learning? How do you personalize content towards people? So there are about 40 of these kind of use cases being deployed. You can find them on the website. But now I'd like to pass the floor to two partners that will show some use cases to get a more concrete aspect of how it works and what is enabled. So first, I'll pass the floor to Anu Passi-Rauste. Welcome, Anu. Great to have you. So Anu has been with the data space from the very beginning. She's the Chief Business Officer at Headai, so AI, analytics, matching company. She'll describe it that is connected to the data space. She's also a board member of Prometheus-X, and the use case that she'll be presenting is about skills assessments for students. To you, Anu.
Thank you so much, Matthias, and great to be here. Thanks for the audience also being interested and all for this the discussions we have. So let me share here the screen. Yes, so sorry, Prometheus-X, we are building really the future of data spaces in Europe, and one of the areas is skills data space. And today I'm talking about one of the use cases, what we have, as Matthias mentioned, being developed already for the higher education. And I think this is a nice continuation and collaboration what we have in this webinar that we are kind of discussing the big programs like DIGITALEUROPE and what we heard from Evelien, and then also the development, what is happening in the Prometheus-X on these actual use cases. So this goes in parallel, and I hope, of course, that we do the learnings together and we learn what are the needs and the demands and how we really build the capabilities, competencies, like mentioned many times. So I discuss from the Headai perspective and from our use case partner perspective why we need also lots of data, why data sharing is very crucial, and especially under good governance, security, and trust. Shortly about us, Headai, we are a Finland-based technology company, AI company mainly, and in the skills data domain, we provide text analytics for forecasting, doing these different type of matchings, recommendation solutions, and the semantic text analytics. The use case what I'm presenting here is about the higher education students and the end user, whom we've provided the value is University of Applied Sciences lab in Finland, and they are the lead organizer and also the data provider in this use case. So there's always in this data space use cases, we have lots of different players, and that's the clue, that we can connect different services, different data providers, and provide the value for also different organizations. And the main value, of course, in this type of where we are talking about skills assessment, and also actually it's about Evelien's use case of this discovering the optimal courses for a student from a, let's say we have a global library existing for the students at the moment, and that's also a lab vision. How can they connect to the global resources, all these trainings, high quality, higher education level training programs, not only on their university, but really looking to the European offerings and connect that for their students in a most optimal, efficient way. And the value is then for the learner, how can they get really the personalized training programs that are tailored to their learning path, on their degree, on the skills what they already have, but what they are interested in. And as Sakari was mentioned also, taking the foresight data, what is the labor market actually demanding, what is good for the students from the employability point of view. For the degree managers, career coaches, all of them, the benefit is really helping them. World is evolving. We have so many different scenarios, different directions for the students. How can we really bring this insight from the data? What is meaningful? And also how to personalize for different these type of learning paths for the students. Take the time efficiently to have the face-to-face time then for the harder questions, and let the AI and data guide on kind of a 24/7 the students, and play with the scenarios. And thirdly, I would say the employers, how can they really bring their data also to this systemic problem? Skills data solutions are very much, when we really talk about the impact, then we need to all be involved. The employers have their data in order to know what is the future demands, have the educational data, have the students' data, and put them all together. And the value is then for all of them. And on this bubble on the right side, you see the kind of all the players what we have in this use case at the moment. But as said, these are scalable and easily now, because of the data space, we can connect more data sources, more services easily to these type of use cases. We work together with Inofuku, French company, providing really a huge global resource of trainings, as well as EduNow, or also campus solutions for education and higher education. Justify for data optimizations, and then Headai, we are here orchestrating the case, also providing labor market data, but especially bringing our analytics to the game. I'll show you this actually in live, what is the chatbot about, and what is also the digital twin looks like, and then I'll actually come back to this presentation for a second. But now I share my screen from the chatbot side. Matthias, do you see now the chatbot? Just checking.
Yes, we see
Good,
it.
thank you. Yes. So this is what we designed for the lab university, and especially it's also about piloting with some kind of a specified courses, and that's what I would highlight. That brings also the capabilities that we start to do the things with a smaller focus groups. We learn and then we scale, and this is what we did in now. With the environmental studies degrees in the, with their students. And this chatbot is now connecting the AI, the data sources together in an existing framework. And this is also what I see, the current solutions, what we are talking, these AI agents, or how do we use existing different systems to connect already existing data and resources. What is a digital twin? So now we are starting with the students' data, actually their degree data. And then we are building with the AI capabilities a digital twin, meaning this knowledge graph, what is now putting together, analyze from the degree descriptions, what are the students actually learning in their international business studies in this degree. And this is now giving the semantics layer for how we can connect the degree with the courses and with the users' own, if they want to add their own data here, or the foresight data from the labor market. This is a knowledge graphs presenting what are the skills words and how they're connected to each other, so that we can really bring these very granular information for the AIs and from the data. I go back to the chatbot, and so this is the basis in this learning assistant. I continue now, I can explore the digital twin, and that actually the students found very useful. They found it very practical to see in a detailed way what they actually are learning in their degree. And they actually wanted to have this knowledge graph to be their navigation board for the next skills and also bring their interest areas from that. So there was also lots of learning for us during this piloting. We want to give the students also opportunity to bring their existing skills. We all learn in different areas in life, in the work, and we have something before our studies. So that's where you can also continue. You can continue with existing skills, or you can add your own skills. Actually, I wanted to have, but now push this one. And then it's also about not only taking what we have, but really highlighting where are my interest areas on that specific domain areas. And let me put here like analytics, and in my case, it's, for example, data-driven and let's put sales as my interest is as a business person. And then that helps to formulate this digital twin on now more on the interest with the interest focus. And then thanks to the connection to these different EduNows and InnoFocus training offerings, we have multiple training recommendation the sources to connect and provide now for the students. And I choose the Coursera here. And then it's doing the calculation. So now it's putting together the person's the degree plus my own interest, and then the course data, and calculating that what would make sense because my current skills are matching as well as my interest. And I do have here a link to the Coursera course. And that's where we can continue. We can look, modify the digital twin, modify the interest, and modify the of course, the training opportunities. And that's what is happening here. And I really see that this was aligned with the case what Sakari was also mentioned, how they are connecting different sources together and then giving the opportunity for the students to choose from that and take the AI to help when we have all the data sources semantically interoperable. Let me go quickly back to the presentation and show the infrastructure, because I think that was also what Evelien was highlighting, that we need to understand how things go together. And this is one of the visualizations, like that we get these different data sources, we have different providers, we have the trust framework, we have the services that provides the common governance, and then we have different analytics, what we can do with the data, and then we again have the ways to ensure we give the trusted the results and actionable insight for the different users. In this case, you saw what is for the students, but of course the data can be for the education provider. What are the students interested in? What is the labor market demand? What would be those areas that they should be actually developing their courses, etc. So there's a lots of different kind of actionable insights, and that's what we also learn by doing. And the capabilities now to really scale these use cases, pilot this is wonderful, because we do have them all existing in the marketplace, and we are in a phase that we are really productizing the offerings and ready for scaling this with all of new partners too. So thank you. This was my presentation, and happy to answer more questions and share also the links with you.
Thank you very much, Anu. Congratulations. I think it shows very well how you can go from some raw data about the student to some more analytics, and then use that to be matched with a lot of different providers of trainings, and all of these different parts are today siloed, and here we've managed, thanks to the data space, to make them interconnected, and you can plug and play. If you don't want to have another provider of trainings, it can be used as such. I think it echoes quite well the kind of discover use cases Evelien talked about, but Sakari as well, Abdou as well. So those are common problems and similar kind of connections we need to make. So thank you very much. We will share also a link to the catalog and the use case a bit later on. So now I'll introduce Irawan. Irawan is a research lead at IMC. IMC is also a Prometheus-X board member, and Irawan has been leading another use case, so on organizational level, skills analytics, and on up and reskilling of employees through their IMC learning platform. So very happy to have you with us, Irawan, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias, and happy to be here. Share my screen. So, can you see my screen now?
Yes, all good.
Yes, okay. So, my name is Irawan Nurhas. I'm a research project manager at IMC Innovation Lab. So IMC is an e-learning provider where we provide learning management system for corporate. So we have more than 10 million learners using our learning management system, and more than 1,200 clients, organization client that across the globe. So today I would like to present our use cases within H-Skill project, organizational level skill management for employee upskilling and reskilling. Upskilling and reskilling needs is actually not a new problem. Since a couple of decades ago, upskilling and reskilling is always come into organizational level problem. And I remember a couple of years ago when I first time worked as a front-end developer, I can, for example, create, I need couple of hours just to design the user interface and make it in web development. But now with the help of artificial intelligence, the advancement of technology, I can reduce my time, not to take couple of hours, but only couple of minutes to solve the same task. So here, there is a differentiation between the similar tasks required different skills, what we need a couple of years ago with now. And the problem not about the upskilling and reskilling need, but the problem is here a fraction of time where we need to transform our current skill or it can become outdated. So therefore, organizations need to adjust their current skill. They need to understand where they stand right now with their current skill, and then move forward to identify what kind of skill that can be outdated and need to be transformed for their business goal. And this is also in line with the World Economic Forum, where they highlight that almost half of the current skill will be transformed and will be updated in the next 5 years. The problem for organization, if they want to start with the skill-based approach, there is a general problem. For example, whether the skills is already in the digital form available, whether it is distributed in one location, in one department, and there is also something about skills data silos where data placed across different organizations, and data can also be unstructured and it cannot be interoperable between different services. And more importantly, maybe about the data protection and security issues. And for us, for example, at our learning management system, there is more important than to understand the analytic result, to understand the data about the what kind of skill they need for their company is action. So to turn insight into real action where they can, for example, assign people to specific courses or to identify their job profile and then can find a specific role that fit with their current skill set. And this is something that we need to solve within our use cases. And that's why at IMC, at Innovation Lab, we are working with different data space project. So we have a Merlo project for German level. We also have a possible project and also EdgeSkill project where we hypothesize that AI and data space can overcome all of these challenges by first breaking down the data silo where we can combine or merge different data from external and internal company and provide effective skill management. With data space, we can also address problem about trust and privacy, where we can anonymize, for example, sensitive data, and then share the sensitive data of employee with external party. And at the end, we can, for example, enable data-driven insight to create meaningful analytic for the company. So within EdgeSkill project, IMC try to find different services that can help our LMS client, where we are working with real industry client of IMC as a use case application partner. They are, for example, learning and development or HR manager. They want to find, for example, skill framework extraction. They want to find analytic to find skill gap within their company, matching employees with training and career paths, but also find or monitoring costs associated with up and reskilling decision. For this use case, we are working with data for providers such as Schuler Carriera from Germany. They provide us with talent data, with job lexicon. There are also Rejustify with their data aggregation service and also skills data. We also have Inokofu that provide us with external training recommendation, and we also collaborate with Headai and ManMatcher that help us with skill framework extraction and skill gap analytics. So for the first use case, we aim to understand the current position or the current strengths of a company. So we have, for the client company of IMC, they have a lot of data, skills data that come in form of occupational description, task based process, for example, or list of tasks that are need to be done inside of the company. All of these documents are important resources for the company to understand what are their skill set inside of the company. And if we already identify this skill set, for example, then we can build a library reference for the skill set inside of company. And then we can combine that with our LMS to design a job profile and then adjust specific employee for specific training courses. And here we also, with the help of Prometheus-X infrastructure, we can find the right services. We can exchange data between different provider. And for the second use case, we with the same data, we can identify the skill gaps inside of the company, because they already have this data about their tasks, about their job processes, and other relevant skill data for the company. We can extract all of this information and compare with external data such as global data about specific industry, and then from there, if we can find the skill gaps, what is inside of the company, what is needed for the specific industry, and from there, if the courses is not available from the learning management system, then we can use another service to provide external learning recommendation. Small demo about these services, for example, as a learning and development manager, they can log in inside of our LMS. They can, for example, go inside of a page where they can upload a lot of documents that relevant to identify their current skill set and start the analytics tools. Here we collaborate with Headai to provide us with digital twin, but these digital twins also match with different or combine with data from global industry demand. And here we can, for example, find what kind of skill that need to be trained inside of the company, such as for sales, commercial, and other skill gap that identified here. And using Inokofu services, we can, for example, find external services that relevant for this skill gap. So, and yeah, the employee can take the external learning course, or they can also as a learning and development manager, they can, for example, use the result data and import it into LMS and do another analytics service. That's all from my side. If you have any question, if you want to collaborate with us, and please don't hesitate to contact me.
Thanks a lot, Irawan. Thanks a lot. Congratulations on this very interesting use case that shows from an employer or employee point of view how we can connect these different data sets and data present in current LMS talent management systems. I think it's very interesting. So to continue, to show I don't have a demo. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this use case we have more on the K-12 domain. So I put to be confirmed there because we haven't had the final validation of the funding of it from the French government, but it's an interesting, I think, concept that we have built with different partners. And the general idea is how can we use generative AI to create personalized exercises for pupils based on their level. And so for that, you need data about the learning content that is present in certain systems, and you need data about the person on their grades, their learning traces, what they've done, for instance, in math, in previous exercises, and so on, that is present in other edtech systems. And that needs to be connected with a generative AI model to generate the exercise based on the learning content and on the level of the pupil, and of course, in a secure way, and of course, with ways to test if the exercises generated are relevant, if the answers given are pedagogically correct, and so on. And so we have here a project where different providers, where pupils have their data about math exercises can be connected to a personal data store so that the pupil has control over their data. Learning content provider can be connected as well, and an AI, an open LLM, can be executed directly inside that personal data store. And we have different building blocks. I'm not going to get into the detail because of the time, but that kind of help assess the trustworthiness of the results of the AI and build that in a secure environment. So this is also to show that the data space and this kind of interactions can facilitate different kind of use cases on K-12, on higher education, on employer level, public-private collaborations, and that's also very important to understand. So if we go a bit more technically, we have about 20 what we call building blocks that enable these exchanges, divided into 4 families. The core building blocks that are the most essential, some on trustworthy data sharing, so assessment of AI, decentralized trainings, and so on. Data transformation on the transforming into between different standard formats on the data model, and utility on monitoring, and so on. You can find all, I'm going to describe a few, but you can find all of them and their precise technical descriptions on the website, and they're all open source. So the core components, there is a connector that enables each participant to connect to this infrastructure, connect their APIs, their databases, so that the exchanges can be made. A catalog components to describe your services, your data, your needs. Contract to contractualize, set your policies. Consent to enable to manage GDPR consent. Identity to manage identity of organizations, and billing and monitoring, well, to bill, to enable the transactions, and the monitoring to check it out. And so, for instance, one implementation of these components is the Visions Trust Marketplace that I can, I think I had it open here. So you have a catalog, you can come register your data, you can come search for data and services, APIs, and so on, search for projects that might be in need of the data and service you can you provide, and then not going to go through the full aspects of it, but you can set policies, contractualize, define the pricing, and then data can be exchanged. So that's a bit about the core components. But then if we dive into some data transformation ones, we have the edge translator. So this has been co-developed by MindMatcher, Headai, Rejustify, so Prometheus members companies that contribute to the code and develop this component, and then can also offer it as a service, but the component is also open sourced. And this is to enable interoperability between different skills, ontologies, and terminologies. Let's say you have your own skills ontology or your own training described in some form of skills. You want to map it, for instance, to ESCO or to another one. This component can help automate that mapping. And then when data is exchanged through the data space, it will translate your data into a standard model, which is very useful to exchange between different training providers, between different job offer providers, to agree on the same way to describe the skills and to facilitate that for participants. These components can be used. Another one is on the learning records and learning traces. So a bit of the same idea, to say that you might have your learning traces into a caliper format or in a SCORM format, into another format. You want to translate it to an XAPI format. Well, this converter allows you to map your own format to the common XAPI standard, and then when data is shared, it is automatically translated to the right format, so that again you don't need to make too much changes to your own systems, and you can just plug in and use those components that facilitate this conversion. And we could extend those with the ELM and with other standards, and that's also the point of this open source effort. Another one is the PLRS, the Personal Learning Record Store. So co-developed by Yinokufu and Cozy Cloud. And this is, as I showed before in the use case, where a person needs to have a personal data store to get all their data into a secure, sovereign, let's say, environment. Well, this is this component that you can use in your use case to provide this data sovereignty to people, and that is automatically connected to the different data sources thanks to the data space, and that can recuperate the learning traces, for instance, into the right format and show it to people and enable this kind of innovative use cases, such as the Gen AI one based on this personal data. So those are a few components, again, a lot different. And just to show, not to be too technical, but the general aspect is, if you have here 3 edtechs that want to share with a dashboard, the edtechs can deploy these learning record converters to transform their data into the right format, or can use a service on the data space that does it for them. They will register and pass contracts through the catalog and this data intermediary service, and they will deploy their connectors, and then the protocol can be enabled either to share directly with the dashboard or share with this converter, and then share the result with the dashboard. So this is just a high-level architecture, but to see that it's really modularized, and each edtech can choose which component they want to deploy. On quick remark on the business model. So general aspect is to say this integration build new kind of value, new kind of products to end users that can be universities, that can be employers, and so on. And there is a bit of a trickle-down approach, is that the end user pay whoever leads the creation of these new products. They pay the data and service providers they use, and the data intermediary, the, let's say, data space providers they use. And these data space providers pay if they use external interoperability services, and also pay Prometheus-X and this kind of governance, so that because they rely on this governance and on this organization to fund and govern and create the trust in this infrastructure, on which then they integrate and provide components on. And so they pay a little part so that the operations and the components can continue to be funded. So in a nutshell, money is based on actual transactions and products being bought, and the infrastructure is paid through its usage, and whoever wants to, let's say, come and deploy an infrastructure service can easily do it thanks to the open source components and pays a little part so that the nonprofit can continue. On the governance model, again, there is the association that kind of decides which components are developed, what kind of standards do we need? Do we need a new converter towards a new format? These kind of questions. And the association is composed of the edtechs, the universities, the users of the infrastructure that decide what they need and can then direct some funding from the association to it. And so as we show, the association is funded by the providers that develop infrastructure services on top of the components. And this money then can be reinjected in the developments and in, of course, the operations of the data space. So these are some first business and governance models that allow to have a sustainable approach to maintaining this infrastructure and that are based on concrete usage and value and transactions that happen through the data space. So very quickly, our approach to this interoperability and enabling on the governance, business, and technical parts. On the governance, we unite both public and private organizations to make those decisions. And we do partnerships with existing initiatives so as not to reinvent. We don't invent any standards, so we collaborate with one edtech or with the education hub to see which architecture with standards are decided, and then we build components that facilitate it. On the business level, we work from concrete and innovative use cases to show the value, and of course projects that are funded and that can purchase such services so that there is sustainability. And on the technical part, again, it's based on open standards, it's open source components that you can easily use, and we concentrate on things that do not already exist so as to better bridge the different initiatives. And with that, we hope to create enough of a, let's say, network and adoption effect to sustain this and build a common and open decentralized layer. So you can join it. I will share a form in the chat. You can describe if you want to provide some data or service, or if you have a project, if you want to participate to the open source developments. There are a lot of opportunities of projects that can need your data. So fill it in. We can help you on board on the platform and so on. You can describe your offers and projects, and stay tuned now for the presentation of DS4Skills Go, which is 8 new big projects being deployed on this data space, and that will need data and services that you might be able to provide, and that might be a good way for you to get on board. So thank you very much, and the floor is now to Ioannis on the European Commission.
Hello.
Hi, Ioannis.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm Ioannis Gaviotis. I'm working for the European Commission, and I would just like to share a few thoughts about the policy concerning the data spaces in general, and specifically the skills data space. I hope you can see my screen now. Can you see my shared screen?
Yes, we can.
Good. Thank you very much. So I will be very brief, and I will just set what is the European strategy, the European Union strategy for the data spaces and the skills data space in particular. So just a few political thoughts and political background. As you know, we have in December, we have had our new commission, and our president has been again re-elected. So one of the things that she has stressed in her political guidelines, even before she was chosen to be the new president, she talked about her vision about the union of skills. This is a key word that we will very actively listen to in the future in the upcoming months, actually. And of course, the Commission is going to secure skills funding in the new mandate. That's 5-year mandate. Among the other priorities that Ursula von der Leyen has put for the new Commission is skills training, actually. And well, it's not by chance that it has happened. As you know, the Draghi report has been published last year, and it focuses about how the European Union is going to benefit from the new technologies. And one of the aspects that has been raised prominently in this report is the skills gaps and how we're going to address those skill gaps. And we're talking about all stages of education, vocational training, not only the formal education, but also education concerning adult learning and so on. So as the new council, the new vice presidents and the new director generals have been appointed to the new commission, among them Rosanna Minzatu, that has put forward again the priorities for skills, for data. And among the things that she has raised is that we want, of course, to focus on training and education. And one prominent way to achieve our goals is via skills intelligence, which directly leads us to the data spaces and the skills data space in particular. So there is this general vision about the common European skills, the common European data spaces and the skills data space. What is the actual target? We want to identify the gaps. Many of the previous speakers have spoken about the gaps in the skills of the learners, the skills needed by the enterprises. So we want to take note of the skill supply and the market demand and try to make the best of matching, targeting to personalized and lifelong learning services, and to improve the efficiency of hiring in the enterprises sector. So, more concentrating on the skills data space. A couple of years ago, we ran in our DG the Data Spaces for Skills project, which was a preparatory project, which tried to think and propose architecture, good practices, use cases, data sources for data spaces for skills. Now this project has been complete, and it has taken the newcomer in this area is the Data Spaces for Skills Go project, which is a deployment project, which is going to deploy some pilot cases on this aspect. More will come later by the people who run this project. But I would like to keep the whole environment of the projects and the initiatives that are around the data spaces. Of course, first of all, you know that there are many European data spaces in agriculture. For example, we have Europeana in cultural heritage, in tourism, in media, and so on. So we're not talking about a single sectoral data space, skills. Maybe today it's the subject of this meeting and this the presentations that we have seen, but this needs to operate in a ecosystem of other European data spaces, and there should be, in principle, no barriers, no frontiers between those data spaces. The common unifying background is offered by the Data Skill Support Center, which offers the requirements set forth by the individual data spaces that are homogenized somehow so that we have the greater vision. And there is also Simple, which offers a middleware platform. And of course, we have other architectures and that need to be somehow combined in order to offer to the greater cause. So I will just finish by showcasing the objectives of the Data Space for Skills project. We have heard about the building blocks, about the architectures, about the requirements, about the interoperability aspects, which are, of course, of great importance, and they are absolutely necessary requirements. In my own view, we should try to stress more on the quantity aspect also, which means basically that we should try to achieve the critical mass of data sources. And I could be much, since I am an engineer, I could get a more, let's say, down to earth figure, for example, describing number of records, number of fields, number of gigabytes, if you want to be more, let's say, precise, so that there is a critical mass of data to be shared. And of course, this will be later be combined with governance mechanisms. We'll, of course, try to keep up any ethical or legal concerns and respect those things, and actually achieve the success of such of this general data spaces initiative. I would stop here, and I would be glad to answer any other questions that come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ioannis. And to Nathan and Chiara now for the presentation of the DS4 Skills Go project.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Gaviotis, for the presentation. I am indeed Chiara Longobardi, Senior Project Manager from Digital Europe. And today I will present on the initiative that Mr. Gaviotis just referred to, the Data Space for Skills Go, along with my colleague, Nathan Carvalho. And in a short time, Nathan will be, indeed, as you're seeing now, sharing the screen as well with the project that we are about to address. So I take a step back exactly to where Mr. Gaviotis said, because indeed we arrived to Data Space for Skills Go as a second step, let's say, of a first project that was launched in October 2022, and that was Data Space for Skills. Data Space for Skills was a preparatory action funded by the Digital Europe program. And indeed, it was led, the consortium was led by Digital Europe, exactly as for Data Space for Skills Go. This project, as a preparatory action, had the objective of defining a blueprint guiding on the implementation of the Data Space for Skills, of the Common European Data Space for Skills. Almost a year later, so a little bit of step forward, almost a year later, we developed Data Space for Skills Go. The project was awarded, and now we just kicked off in January 2025. So through this presentation, I will take you through the project a little bit. You will have a general overview, let's say, of the project composition and functioning with me, and then I will give the floor to my colleague Nathan for a little bit more of details on the use cases, on the methodological approach, and so on and so forth. So just to give you an idea, the project has the objective of deploying the European Data Space for Skills. It's based on 8 large use cases that will build also on the infrastructure connecting with other European initiatives that are at the moment ongoing on the data spaces, for example, as edge skills, and Matthias also referred to it before, so you should be quite familiar, let's say, with this at this point. And the project in particularly, as I said, started in January 2025. It will last 36 months, so it will end in December 2027. The consortium is coordinated by Digital Europe, so we are the coordinator of Data Space for Skills Go, exactly like we were of the first Data Space for Skills. And the consortium is then composed by these partners that you see here that put together different players in the ecosystem of education and employment. So as you can see, for example, besides having here Prometheus-X, we also have the Grande École Numérique, we also have AIT Digital, we have universities, as for example, UNIR, the Universidad Internacional de La Rioja, we have the Open University of Catalonia, but also big industry players such as SHIR, such as the Adecco Group, Badgebox, and so on and so forth. So the project brings really together in this effort of creating, developing the European data space for skills, all the key players that will be then represented and that will be needed in this consortium. So private, public, employment, universities, research, etc. So that's really the strength of the consortium. On the associate side, we also have HeikkiIä, the FRAUNO, which is the organization of the industries in Spain, the representative organization of the industries in Spain, Fraunhofer, which is a research center, the ITL, which is the Estonian Association for Information Technology and Communication, and then big players such as NTT Data, Workday, that you know well as private players, so companies, and then the Federation of Hellenic ICT Enterprises. Now, this is just to give you an idea of the structure of Data Space for Skills Go. But for more details, Nathan, I will leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Chiara, and I'm mindful here of the time as well, so we keep the presentations on schedule. So as Chiara said, the project started in January this year, and I'm going to give a brief overview on our methodology to deploy the use cases on the project, because also to highlight here, of course, the project is not only deploying use cases. We have other efforts within this project, such as sustainability, communication efforts around the data space for skills. But of course, one of the, let's say, core components of the project are the deployment of these 8 use cases. And as Chiara was saying, we have different types of use cases in the project. We have universities, for example, who are planning to use the data space for skills to improve the process of learning with the students. We have public authorities who also wants to upskill migrants who are entering the city. We have, again, the industry players who want to improve their HR processes. So again, we have different players using the data space for skills, deploying it for different approaches. So the methodology here is quite straightforward. It's divided into 4 different phases. First, we have the setting up of these use cases. Then we have the design, deployment, and testing of each of these use cases. And on the screen, you can see a tentative timeline that we are using as a baseline to deploy these use cases. So I'm just going to quite briefly mention each of these phases. So in phase 1, which is when we let's say, give the concept of these use cases. So on the first phase, in the initiation, we set the KPIs, we set the users, we set the use case descriptions, what is the final goal. So it's really more a documentation part of the use case where all the partners in the project have a common understanding on how this use case is planning to be deployed. On this stage, we also, and I highlight this here because I want to comment this at the end of the presentation, that we also already plan the specific data or service providers that can be connected with this specific use case. So this is something we will be looking forward to communicate with the ecosystem here. The second step, so when we have the concept, let's say, materialize of the use case, it's when we start the design phase. So here, basically, we have a business model definition and a contract definition of how this use case will happen, also in technical aspects. And we define the final inputs of the providers that we use in this use case. The design phase is a preparatory phase for the step number 3, which is when we do the actual testing of these use cases. So here in the testing phase is when we take this concept and design that we have developed together as a consortium and the use case leaders in the project, and we start doing iterative tests. We gather feedback from the participants. We use different research methods here. We use focus group, target groups as well, to see how we could improve this use case. And we then use these insights to fine-tune, let's say, the business models for these use cases. And why we do that? Because in the final phase, in the deployment phase, we do a more scalable approach for all these use cases. So we check with the use case leaders what went wrong, what went right, what could have been improved, to then, let's say, share this business model so we can really use these use cases as a benchmark to other organizations to start using the data space for skills also based on these use cases that we have developed. And of course, this is very interesting information when you want to start your own, let's say, business use case using the data space for skills. So very briefly and summarize, these are the 4 main steps when we are deploying the use cases in the project. And again, this is the tentative timeline that we have set for the project. Just before I finalize, I would like to highlight that again, for these use cases, we'll be in need of data providers and service providers to help connect with these use cases. And again, we are on the start of the project, so this is really the moment that we need to define who are going to be the data and service providers for each of these use cases. So if you want to participate in the project with us, if you want to be part of the ecosystem, please be in touch with us from Digital Europe, also Matthias, with the team here from the project. We'll be happy, to brief you on the project, how we plan to develop these use cases, and see if there is potential synergy between us and these use cases that we want to deploy. So I think I was 1 minute late, but we are happy to take any questions from the audience now.
Thank you very much, Nathan. There was an interesting question from Amina that was answered on the education skills. That's also why in Gaia-X and Claudio named it the education and skills data space, because we can't recreate silos between data spaces, and we see it in all the use cases that you need data from learning, data from the schools, data from the employers. So it's one data space. We have use cases, as we've shown, in K-12, in higher education, in lifelong learning, in employment, and yeah, we build it as such, even though the very official EU name is Skills Data Space. It also covers education. Yes, there are initiatives on portfolios. So for instance, it's not directly integrated yet with this data space, but the passport of skills is a portfolio. We have a use case in DS for Skills Go that is about credentials and people having in wallets their skills credentials that they can share with external parties. So it's a use case led by Yatoumi in Belgium. And we are working also with other initiatives such as the Open Education initiative on this kind of topics. But again, we put in a form, and please feel free to contact us if you have projects, if you have things that you think would benefit from the data space, if you have services, data you could provide to these projects and use cases. Get in touch, fill in the form, and let's connect it and build it together. Okay, then I don't know if you have some last words, Victor, but I think we can close it.
Thanks, Matthias. I see there was a lot of interesting conversations also happening in the chat, so it's good to see that the presentation sparked some lively discussion. And we'll also be sending a follow-up communication with the recording of the event and an article, so you'll have those resources there. But We'll also look at, together with Claudio and Matthias, about how we can continue some activities within the education and skills ecosystem to have these conversations ongoing, because of course some important topics were raised of, okay, well, we need to look at how we can establish those governance models. So we need to continue those conversations in certain contexts. So thanks to everyone for connecting today, and looking forward to working together in the future.